Welcome back, day checkers. Is reselling worth it anymore? And then after we talk about that, I want to share my reselling predictions for 2026. So the first thing to talk about is, why do people get into reselling? I think the first thing, reselling is a low barrier to entry when it comes up in terms of an investment. Like getting started with reselling, it's very simple. You don't need a lot of capital. You can start with stuff around the house, start learning different platforms, how it works, and then eventually build that up and keep reinvesting. You don't need a big investment up front. For example, like our physical product brand that we started, our first order that we had was about $7,000. Not everybody has $7,000 to start a physical products brand. Reselling is much easier to start. Also, other businesses. If you're going to start an auto detailing business, you're going to want to get a truck, or you're going to want to have space to hold all the hoses that you're going to need, all the brushes, all of the supplies. That upfront cost could be a lot of money at first, and a lot of people don't have that money. So reselling is easy to get into because you don't have to have that capital up front. Let's face it, corporate world, working your 9 to 5, that 9 to 5 grind is not that appealing to a lot of people. It was not appealing to us at all, and that was one of the reasons why we got into reselling. We had the idea that if we were building stuff on the side, that eventually that would allow Casey to leave his 9 to 5. That's one of the attractions of reselling, is that you can eventually get to that point. It's not easy. You will have to put in a lot of work, but a lot of people like the idea of working for themselves instead of working at a job for someone else. And with that comes the flexibility. You have the flexibility to go out and source whenever you want. You can list whenever you want. You can take time off whenever you want. You don't have to answer to the quote unquote man. And that is something people strive towards because they do get burnout at their job. I mean, Casey and I have the same mindset of, we are not put on this earth to work as much as we are and work so much until you can afford to retire. By the time that happens, we've seen it so many times, especially when we were RVing. When we would RV, we would talk to some older adults and they always were envious of us. They wished they could have RV'd sooner, but they were busy working, raising families. And back then you didn't have these quote unquote side hustles where you could make money on the side and they could turn into where they're making more money than your 9 to 5. We live in this awesome opportunity with the internet, and it has given so many people a chance at a different lifestyle than what, my parents were raised on. When we were telling them that we were going to start an Amazon business and start selling on Amazon, they thought we were crazy. They're like, you do not leave your job. You need that job. You need the retirement. You need to have a consistent income that's coming in, and that's not a real business. And people argue about whether reselling is a real business or not. I think it's more of a hustle. That's just my personal opinion. But I've seen people build stuff to where it is operational and they are hiring employees. For us, we look at reselling as something on the side for us. It's something to supplement everything else that we have going on, and it is something that we enjoy to do. People start reselling because their job isn't paying enough. They're not getting a big enough raise. They need extra income, maybe to pay bills. Maybe they had an unexpected bill. Maybe their kids are now going to go off to college and they want to help them pay for that. They want to take family vacations. There's a lot of reasons why people start reselling. You could be a stay-at-home mom and you're looking for a way to make money so you can stay at home. I know a lot of resellers that are stay-at-home moms, and I think that's a great opportunity to still be contributing, but also get that opportunity to stay at home and watch your kid grow, which I think is so important. My background is teaching, and I taught preschool and kindergarten, and those are the years that they are impressionable, curious, so much fun. You only get that opportunity once. So reselling does that for a lot of people. And that was the premise of our podcast, Paycheck to Daycheck. And what is a daycheck? A daycheck is making money outside of a traditional 9 to 5. And a lot of people work towards Daychecks. There's a lot of different ways that you can make money, and mainly online. Can you find consistent inventory? There is a huge difference between us selling on eBay, Poshmark, whatnot, and selling physical products that are our brand. Those are two completely different structures, models. With reselling, you have to go out and hunt for things. So you're going to thrift stores. You might only find one item at one thrift store and you might find 10 at another. The amount of inventory you're bringing in is inconsistent. And people might argue with that, but it is true. There's times where I go out and I don't find anything. There's other times where I get a full cart. To me, that's really hard to justify putting in all my energy. Because with eBay, the minute we stop listing is the minute we stop selling. And then also you have some of the items that you're listing might stay on eBay for 1-2 years. So you're pretty much just a lot of inventory you're storing. And people might say, well, it's because you're not choosing the correct inventory. You're not picking up the right items. When I go out, I am hoping something sells when I buy it. I am buying it based on my buying criteria. The price, what is it selling for on eBay? How many items like that are listed on eBay? I try to calculate the sell-through rate and figure out, is there enough demand for what I have and is there too much supply? I want to find stuff that sells fast now. I'm not messing with clothing unless it's an item that is really rare. Other items that we used to pick up, that's the only risk you run. When you pick stuff up, market fluctuates all the time with reselling. Things that sold on eBay might not be selling for what they used to. And I have a really good example because we just sold an item that had been sitting there for about a year. And I'm going to look at my notes. So we used to pick up Jamie Sadak golf apparel. That stuff would sell fast and sell for $30, $40 for us. We have a few of her shirts that have just been sitting. And a lot of times I'll go into eBay, I'll book, edit, and then I'll mark stuff down. And I'll mark it down by maybe 5%, 10%. This shirt sold for $9.07 plus $6.99 shipping. I could not believe it. It had been sitting for over a year, and that market value went from $35, $40 down to people only wanting to buy it if it's less than $10. So after fees and shipping, label, it was $7.85 was what I earned. I remember I bought it for $2.50. And then if you consider on average, we pay about 30 cents for a poly mailer, you're looking at $5 profit. But then you factor in my time and time to package it, find it, package it, take it to the postal store. To me, that's not worth it anymore. Reselling is not worth it, in my opinion, to go after these small profit items. Some people, if I can sell 20 of those $5 items a day, that's $100. To me, that's not worth my time. I would rather find items that are going to give me the bigger profit. That's less time I'm spending on reselling. And that wasn't the case 2 or 3 years ago. Casey and I were picking up anything and everything that would make a profit, knowing that the more items we listed, the more chance we had of selling items. Our mindset has changed. Our physical product business, on the other hand, is different than having to go out and chase and find inventory. We know how many units per month each SKU sells. We contact our supplier. We put in orders for so many units per SKU. They come in. We know exactly how many we need to ship into Amazon because that's how many we're selling per month. And it's more of a well-oiled machine. We don't have to go out and find that inventory. We have a supplier. We have somebody that we're ordering that inventory from. It's more in bulk. It's just replacing the inventory that we've sold, and we keep going. And that's what I want to put my energy into. But inventory is, I believe, the most important thing for reselling. If you don't have good items and you can't find the good items, then your profits are going to be way lower than if you are able to find those higher profitable items. Ask yourself, do I have the time to source, list, photograph, ship? Do I have the time and do I have the space? Because reselling does take up a lot of those. It's time to go out and source, time that you have to spend listing, photographing, shipping, but also the space. When you first start out, you might have only a couple bins, but then what if you want to keep growing and you keep getting more inventory, more inventory? I would be very interested to know on eBay specific, what is the average length of time items are listed? So like if you took all the items that are on eBay, what is the average time that they're listed? Because I look at some of our items and I'm thinking, these have been sitting there for a very long time. So then you think of, well, now it's in our garage, in our little storage area. We have big shelves in our garage, and they're all the yellow, black plastic bins with the yellow lids. We've got all those, and they're numbered. And you go out there, and that's a lot of space that's taking up in our garage. So you have to think about that. Do you want to keep storing all that stuff? And then also the space to photograph. I'm always changing up our photo area. I have it right now in our spare room. I have white felt that I lay down, and that's what I do my flat lays on, and then I hang stuff up on the wall and take photos there. It works for me, but I do have to put the white felt away and then take it out when I need to photograph. So that does take up some space. And so that's one thing where people might look at it and reselling's not worth it to them because they don't want to have to give up that space. They don't want to have to give up that time to invest in reselling because it's simple. Reselling is a simple concept, but it is a lot of work, especially the more you make, the more you have to put in. It's just like with anything else. And with reselling, you're also going to want to do bookkeeping. You need to know your numbers. How much are you paying in software? Maybe you have a cross-listing service. Maybe you have My Reseller Genie, which is the bookkeeping software. Those are monthly charges. So you got to factor those in. Your mileage, keeping track of that. How much are you spending in inventory? How much are you spending in supplies? You need this data. If you are buying stuff and it's the wrong stuff and you're spending a lot of money or your cost of goods is really high and you look and you're not making a profit, I would definitely ask myself, is reselling worth it then? But you're not going to know if you just keep going out and buying stuff and have sales and shipping it and buying supplies and not keeping track of your bookkeeping. That is really important. If you're going out and you're spending 10 hours a week and you're only making a couple $100, is that going to be worth your time? So those are some of the things you should think about, ask yourself to determine if reselling is worth it to you. Reselling is definitely still worth it to me. It's just going to be on a part-time basis for this year. I still enjoy doing it. We have plans of, in the summertime, taking our new RV that we got and bringing it to different places along the West Coast and still thrifting when we're out there and see if we can find some cool stuff, document our journey on freeway flippers, and it should be a lot of fun to do that, and we're really excited about it. We've been talking about it for the last couple years. If you're unaware, we RV'd full-time for a year and a half. Great experience, loved it, got to travel to so many cool places, and in Arizona it gets really hot during the summer. So we want to have a break, go out for a couple months, come back. Everything that we're building right now is allowing us to do that, which is really cool. So yes, reselling to me is still worth it in 2026. Here are my predictions for reselling in 2026. These are my personal predictions. I think live selling is going to continue to grow. In 2025, live selling was a $22 billion industry, according to an article on Whatnot. Whatnot was 60% of that. That's how big Whatnot got. I don't think live selling's going anywhere. Gary Vee posts a lot about how he feels that's the future of shopping. We saw eBay add that. There's been a lot of different categories that they started the live selling in. I think the live selling has created a new buyer base. And according to Whatnot, the fastest growing categories, because if you think about it, anytime I thought of live selling, I think of like sports cards or Pokemon cards. That's like the first thing that I think of, or like coins. But the fastest growing are beauty, electronics, jewelry, and women's fashion. So according to them, that's the categories that they're seeing probably more sellers start selling. And then also the buyer base is getting big with those particular categories. So if you're listening and you sell niche in one of those categories, maybe give live selling a chance. And you don't have to show your face with some stuff like jewelry, electronics. You can turn the phone around and just put everything in front of you and show it, and you don't even have to show your face. I think cross-posting is going to be a must. Now we have less than 300 items, and last weekend we sold more on Poshmark than we did on eBay, which we're mainly eBay sellers. But I cross-posted a bunch using this perfectly, and we sold more on Poshmark, which was pretty cool because otherwise we wouldn't have had those sales had I not cross-posted. But also Whatnot, if you sign up to be a live seller, I'm unsure if you have to do your first show or not. Whatnot allows you to have active listings as well. So we've sold 4 or 5 items on Whatnot, and we only put up golf stuff. And I still have stuff to cross-post, but we don't have many listings, maybe 70. But we sold like 4 or 5 of them, and we put them as an active listing where people could buy it now, or they could make an offer too. So that could be an option if you're looking for other places to put your inventory depending on what you sell. But I do think cross-posting does help. It's so difficult to figure out, especially if you're an everything seller. If you buy all sorts of clothing, it's hard to know where it's going to sell. Because there's stuff we sell on Poshmark where I think I would have never put it there. I would have just threw it up on eBay and thought it would sell on eBay. So you just never know. But cross-posting, there's free services, there's paid monthly services. You never know where your inventory is going to sell. And I think the more eyes you put on things, the better. It's not time consuming for me because the software makes it so simple. But I like having our products on different marketplaces. And it gives us a better idea of where stuff is selling. My next prediction is that you are going to need to find different ways to find inventory, whether that is trying new stores, trying new areas around you, looking at Facebook Marketplace to find inventory people are selling in bulk. Maybe they're selling their eBay stores because people do that. They just get to the point where they're done selling on eBay. They want to get rid of all of their stuff. And how do you do that? Because they don't want to keep selling on eBay. So they sell everything together. And of course, when you do that, unfortunately, it's going to be at a low amount. So if you do find one of those deals, we've done that before, make sure you look through all that inventory really good, look it up, make sure that the things are selling for what your buying criteria is, and know that you could probably offer them a lower amount and they'll probably take it just to get rid of that stuff. So just be careful with some of the bulk stuff. Know that people that usually are unloading stuff like their eBay store are pretty desperate to get rid of it and in a hurry. So you can sometimes get better deals, but it's tougher out there to find good inventory and you just have to work harder to find it. One of my predictions in 2025 was how retail arbitrage was going to get harder for Amazon sellers because Amazon, they don't like resellers. They don't want people sending in 1 item of this, 2 items of that, 3 items of this. They want real brands on there, and brands are restricting who's selling on their listing. There was the whole Nike gate where people that were grandfathered in to sell Nike were having to then submit invoices to get ungated in it again. And those invoices, they used to only require 10 units, and then it moved all the way up to some people were having to submit for 100 units. So that really hurt a lot of sellers. I even saw some big wholesale sellers stop selling. So I made that prediction. A lot of them pivoted to Walmart, but I'm starting to see the same thing. I'm starting to hear sellers say Walmart's starting to do the same thing that Amazon did. So one of my predictions for 2026 is that the people that switched from Amazon to Walmart are going to run into the same thing. And you're going to see a decrease in resellers selling on Walmart. And my last prediction, which I feel like I'm a very good example of, is that it's harder to make reselling a full-time job. Now, I don't think it's impossible. I know many resellers who are still making it a full-time job. I just think it's going to be even harder because you have to look at the big picture. Finding inventory is becoming a lot more difficult. We've had Alex, who is the queen of thrift. We had her a couple years ago on the podcast as a guest talking about being a stay-at-home mom and reselling, and I still follow her on Instagram. The content she's been sharing about the Goodwills in her area, I believe she's on the East Coast, it's unbelievable, the pricing. She just showed a reel where it was like $19.99 for a pair of leggings, $16.99 for a blouse. There's no way that you can buy that item or those items at that price and make a profit. Those thrift store prices have increased, even in our area. Golf clubs, we could get golf clubs for $2.50 all day. Now they're marking them up to $20, some at $15, $7.99. The profit margin for most has really decreased because you have a lot of factors. You've got the increase in cost of goods, increase in supplies that you use. The shipping is ridiculous. We ship items that are fairly heavy, some of our branded products. One of them is about 3 pounds, and I can fit it in a box that's like 10 by 4, and it would be, depending on where they're going, sometimes it's cheaper for me to shove it in a padded flat rate envelope, and the shipping will go from $12 down to, $10, $12 for a padded flat rate envelope to some areas, depending on where it's going. So that really has cut into our margin with our physical products brand, but also for reselling. I just shipped something on Poshmark that I had to get a heavier label for, and it was an additional $13. Now I know how Poshmark works, and I won't be making that mistake again. But then there's some things that we're shipping on eBay where we're spending $12, $13 to ship an item. We sell a set of golf clubs. Sometimes that can be as much as $15, even if it's going FedEx home delivery or post office ground advantage. So shipping has really increased. And when you add everything up and then you look at the platform fees and, eBay with their promoted listing where anyone that clicks on it, regardless if they buy it, somebody clicks on it and didn't click on your sponsored post or sponsored listing, you're still getting charged. So all that is cutting into what you can profit. And so I think that just makes it to where you have to work harder. You have to put in more time. You have to be creative with how you're finding your inventory. It's just a lot more work. It's just more difficult in the end. And I predict that it's going to continue to be like that in 2026. Not impossible to make it a full-time job, but it's going to take a lot more time and effort to get there. But in 2026, I'm still going to be a reseller. I'm just going to be part-time. I've got a couple other ways that I'm going to be making money, continuing our physical products brand, the Amazon influencer program, which has been really good to us so far, affiliate marketing. When you sign up for List Perfectly, if you use our affiliate link, then we get a commission. We don't make much, but everything adds up. We still do Amazon merch by Amazon, upload t-shirt designs, and then we have our YouTube channels. So we've got the Paycheck to Daycheck YouTube channel, and then also we have our main freeway flipper YouTube channel. And since we're doing the Amazon influencer program, that we do with Creator Connections, where we reach out to brands. We use a software called Viral View that helps us find products that we should review and get commissions on. Some of those videos, the review videos that we do, we put up on our new YouTube channel. So we have Freeway Flippers Favorite Finds, and that has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed doing that, doing the review videos, finding products. We found some pretty cool products. So we're going to be doing another episode about that to kind of do more of a deep dive of how we're using Viral View to find products. We are a firm believer of don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's okay to focus on one thing and build that up. Our physical products brand, we're to that point where we can leave it alone. We don't have to put a lot of energy. We just need to be finding new products, reordering, managing our inventory in Amazon, and the rest does itself. Amazon picks, packs, and ships the item through FBA. And we have some FBM orders that we get on eBay, Walmart, and our website, and some wholesale orders on our website as well. But that allows us to really build other things. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. What are your predictions for the year 2026? How do you see reselling going? Do you resell? Do you resell part-time, full-time? Do you not do it anymore. I know there's some people that completely gotten out of reselling, but in the end, I think reselling is worth it. But you have to look at the big picture and figure out, what is reselling to you? How does it look? Is it worth it to you? And if it is, how reselling looks to you is going to be completely different than how it looks to me. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast. I'll see you in the next one.